fix the things that were broken, apply conservative principles the right way, and move the needle for everybody. So we cut taxes every year, totaling $19 billion. We balanced 8 budgets in a row. The reserves in Florida were around $1 billion when I started, for which I was grateful, and I left at the end of 8 years with close to $9 billion in reserves. We pledged that government wouldn't grow faster than personal income. People's income should grow faster than government income, don't you think? Washington, D.C. ought to be focused on that for a change, because government is growing far faster than our ability to pay for it. But in Florida, we reversed that. We were one of 2 states to become AAA bond rated because of it. Compare that to the sorry state of affairs in Washington, D.C. now, where we've lost the gold standard, the AAA bond rating, because no one seems to be capable of moving towards a balanced budget. Well, if I'm President of the United States, I'm going to apply the conservative principles I applied as it relates to budgets and fixing the things that will lift us up. 6 million more people are in poverty today than the day that Barack Obama got elected president. 6 million more. The middle class, for the first time in any so-called recovery, has declining income. Workforce participation rates are lower than they were in 1977. 6.5 million people are working part-time. The majority of them want to work full-time, but they can't because we've created so much complexity on top of every enterprise in this country. More businesses are closing than being created in this country. This is not America the way we want it. America, when it's at its best, is dynamic, where people dream big dreams, where they embrace the unforeseen. They don't get in line. They're chaotic. Americans aren't good at just kind of marching forward, left, right. We're spectacular when we embrace the unforeseen and pursue our dreams in a way that creates opportunities for all of us. But today, those opportunities are limited by the most mind-numbing rules ever created, or the most complex tax code that has ever existed in American history, or not embracing the opportunities that exist. We have a big debate about immigration today. If we fixed our immigration system, narrowed the number of people coming by family, expanded the number of people coming for economic opportunities, it would benefit all of us. But we can't even get to first base on that subject. Years and years go by because it's a great political wedge issue. The president could have fixed it, but he doesn't. He wants to win elections. He uses immigration as a wedge to try to divide us. We need to fix our immigration system, respect the rule of law, shift to an economic driver so that we can create high sustained economic growth where more people have a chance at earned success. We need to embrace the energy revolution in our country. I mean, this is one of the greatest success stories of all time. If you think about it, it is uniquely American. Private property rights create a dynamic kind of market. Innovation, which is so unique to our country, hydraulic fracking and horizontal drilling, 2 existing technologies, applied the right way, has created a revolution, an expansion of natural gas reserves that no one would have imagined. In fact, we were building import plants for liquefied natural gas in the Middle East. And today, we have so much gas that if we were agile, we would be exporting it to use it as a national security tool for our own country, creating high-wage jobs for Americans, allowing us to have lower utility bills, lower gasoline prices. This should be a huge success story, but this administration and Hillary Clinton, if she's elected, want to suppress this great American revolution. We should be focusing on rising income for all of us, creating an opportunity for earned success. And I know how to do that because that's exactly what we did in Florida. If we're successful doing that, we also have to recognize that America's role in the world is really important. If we pull back, if we lead from behind, if we draw red lines and never act on them, if we call our enemies, regional powers instead of what they are, aggressive powers trying to exert their will without any belief that there's any consequence for doing it. If we call ISIS the JB team and do nothing about it, the net result is that it creates a world lacking in security, a world that is more dangerous. Name a country where our relationship is better today than it was the day that Barack Obama got elected president. Cuba? Canada's relationship is far worse. Iran. Maybe Burma. Yeah. Burma, perhaps. I don't know. That one's close. But Cuba and Iran. are the two countries where our relationships are better. Name the relationships where the relationships are worse. It's the rest of the world, starting with Canada. But the rest of the world now does not believe that we're a reliable friend, and our enemies no longer fear us. And the net result is that we have these new asymmetric threats, these existential threats created because we've pulled back. If we want to have a peaceful and secure world, we need to be engaged in the world. We can't pull back. We have to encourage others to be in partnership with us to create a more peaceful world. And that requires rebuilding our military. One way to show respect to our veterans is to make sure that our military continues to be the greatest fighting force ever created, that they're well trained, that they're well equipped, that we have the best weapon systems that exist, that we can project force to be able to not use it. That's the best way that you create a more peaceful world. This president doesn't get it. I vow to you that I will restore America's leadership in the world where our friends know that we have their back, starting with Israel, but across the board. And our enemies fear us a bit, just a bit, to change their behavior. And the new threats of Islamic terrorism, I want them to be looking up in the sky, because I think they need to know that the United States is going to have a presence there in partnership with our allies. They should be fearful of American might. We need a strategy to take them out, and if we do, we'll create a more peaceful world that will allow us to engage, to change the course of direction of this country so that people's income begins to grow again in this country, this greatest country on the face of the earth. The final thing I'll say is, in order to govern, you have to win. Sounds kind of logical, I guess. I hope it does. I want to win to serve. I have a servant's heart because I believe we're on the verge of the greatest time to be alive. We can focus on all the problems we have, and there are a lot of them, for sure. But I believe we can fix these things, and if we do, this will be an extraordinary time, particularly for young people who no longer believe that they will have the same opportunities their parents and grandparents had. I believe we run the right kind of campaign, we set the stage for the right kind of leadership and the right kind of government. So here's my pledge to you. I wake up each day thinking, wow, I'm a candidate for President of the United States. It is a humbling experience. This is the most extraordinary country on the face of the earth. And I want to run with joy in my heart. I want to spread an infectious belief that our future is brighter. I want to give people a sense that I have the leadership skills to bring people together to fix these things, because I had a chance to do it as governor of Florida. And I'm going to go campaign in places where Republicans haven't been in a long, long while. I'm going to go campaign in the Hispanic communities, hablando en español de vez en cuando, haciendo el mensaje conservador a todos, diciendo, júntenos con nosotros, porque tenemos la mejor filosofía. Translation is, I'm going to go campaign in the Hispanic community, arms wide open, focused on a hopeful, optimistic message in places they no longer believe that we care about. Whether it's the Asian American community, the African American community. Look, we should be campaigning in the black churches saying, join us in this cause. How are the schools working out for your kids? The substandard schools that your children have to go to, rather than in the more affluent neighborhoods, perhaps, where they get better schools. We should be campaigning everywhere, not changing who we are, not changing our beliefs, not changing our philosophy, but campaigning in every nook and cranny of this country, getting outside our comfort zones from time to time, taking a hopeful, optimistic, principled, conservative message to everyone. That's how you win. You don't win by playing the game that Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton play, where you divide the country each and every time you have a chance, where you push down your opponents and ascribe bad motives. I don't believe that the people that disagree with me are bad people. I just think they're wrong. There's a difference. It's okay. You can have a dialogue with someone that doesn't agree with you. You can be respectful and civil about their views. But you need to fight for your beliefs and draw people towards the cause. We will never win. We will never win if we're appealing to people's anger each and every day. We will win. We will win when we appeal to their hearts and to their minds and let them believe what I believe to be true, that we truly are on the verge of the greatest time to be alive. Now it is time to stop talking about it, for crying out loud, and fixing the things that are making it harder for people to rise up. That's my pledge to you as a candidate, and God willing, as President of the United States. Thank you all very much. Look forward to the dialogue. Yes.
Governor. Thanks for coming. I was wondering, which do you regard as a greater threat to the nation, ISIS or our K-12 public education system?
Good question.
If you think it's the latter, how would you use the bully pulpit of the White House to get students and families to prioritize education like their counterparts overseas?
So, look, I mean, there's so many threats. If you listed them, a ungovernable Pakistan would be a threat. North Korea, people kind of think, well, because the guy looks funny, that's not a threat. That is a huge threat for the United States. They're building a nuclear capability that already has the potential of creating security threats for our own country. Russia. If you ask people, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs coming in, Russia is the threat. Iran, now empowered with $100 billion at least to be able to continue to be the largest sponsor of state-sponsored terrorism, is a threat. And our own problems domestically are certainly a threat. Mike Mullen, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, former chairman, said the biggest national security threat in this country is the budget deficit, the structural budget deficit that is now growing, and we're not dealing with the real challenge of the explosion of entitlements that are going to make it harder. We need to reform these things to preserve and protect it for people that already have it, but reform it so that we don't get overwhelmed by the debt that now is huge. So there's lots of threats, and I would add the K-12 system is one of those. I'm passionate about this. This morning I had a chance to speak at an education forum that was hosted by Campbell Brown and the American Federation for Children to talk about my views about this. And here's the deal. The federal government really is not the place for an improved K-12 system to work. It's truly not the place. But there are national priorities that a president needs to lead on. This is a national priority. Here are the facts, because you're absolutely right. This is a grave threat. A third, at best, a third of our kids are college and or career ready. A third. Now, why is that? How can that be? Well, the graduation rate's 80%, Jeb. You must be crazy. Well, a piece of paper that says you've graduated from high school is meaningless if you can't start college and you can't get a job. And that's the problem. About half of the kids that get a piece of paper that says I've graduated from high school have to take remedial math and remedial reading, or both, to be able to start at a community college or a university. We should be ashamed of this. We spend more per student than any country in the world other than, I think, Belgium and Luxembourg and one other rounding error. Literally. I mean, just tiny countries compared to us. This is a national crisis, and I know what the solution is. The solution is robust accountability, high standards, ending social promotion in third grade, school choice, public, private, as much as you can get to put pressure on the system and to give parents the power to make choices so they're further engaged. Teacher effectiveness programs where we train teachers to deal with the unique challenges they face in the classroom, where we eliminate tenure, but we reward teachers for the extraordinary job that they do when students learn, that we move to a performance-based system of compensation, if you will. If we do all these things, we'll get rising student achievement. You know why I know this? Because we did it in Florida. We were at the bottom of the barrel. 50th out of 50 states in graduation rate. 50th. I mean, people just excused it away. No big deal. It's not our fault. Kids in poverty just can't learn. Kids of color, they just can't cut it. That was the attitude. They whispered it. It's not socially acceptable to say that, but that's exactly what they did and what they believed. And I came in and said, enough of this. We're going to raise standards. We're going to believe that every kid can learn. We're going to put accountability in our schools, A, B, C, D, and F. We eliminated social promotion in third grade. This insidious idea that you're functionally illiterate, you go to fourth grade when you're now reading to learn. How are you going to do it if you can't? How are you going to do science if you can't read? How are you going to do math if you can't read the book? We had 34% of our kids, by our measurement, functionally illiterate. The year before I created this policy, and we cut it in half in less than 2 years. Cut it in half. Florida now leads the nation in learning gains, particularly among low-income kids. And we have the most ambitious school choice programs, public and private, in the country. So that's where it needs to play out, at the state level with governors that will risk everything they have. And you know who the prime minister, there's 250,000 kids that otherwise would have been below basic readers, that were now grade level readers because of our reforms. And my guess is the great majority of those 250,000 kids weren't Republicans. That's fine. Service, public service, shouldn't be about political wins. It ought to be about allowing people to rise up. If you can improve the chance of a child being college or career ready, they're going to live a life of purpose and meaning. And if you don't challenge this, the net result is they're going to create huge strains on every aspect of our society. And that's what we see play out today, isn't it? In the Fergusons, in the Baltimores, in these communities where young people have lost hope. They have the worst school systems, and the outcomes are horrific, and there's no marching in the streets for these kids. Well, we need to start marching in the streets for them. That's why it's a national priority, and the president can lead in that regard, but there's no federal program to deal with it. Yes, sir. Get a mic there.
Polls have been taken all over the country. There's a candidate that's leading in all the polls.
Which one's that?
You know. What's your plan of attack to address this? So that by February 9th, when the election here is in New Hampshire, you are the candidate, and you're the gentleman that gets the nomination.
You're talking about Trump, right? You can mention his name. He's the current front runner. He's done a pretty amazing job to get to that point. But here's the deal. We're a conservative party, aren't we? Republican Party. I think what people are eventually going to vote for is a proven conservative leader that's done it, not talked about it, that's actually done it. And I have a proven conservative record, consistent, proven conservative record. When no one was watching. Long time, proven conservative record. Mr. Trump doesn't have a proven conservative record. He was a Democrat longer in the last decade than he was a Republican. He's given more money to Democrats than he's given to Republicans. It wasn't that long ago that he was for, and continues to, hadn't denied, I don't think, the fact that he's for a tax on assets. Now, this is a really exotic form of taxation. Not tax on income, a tax on assets for people that have more than $10 million of assets. 14%. I mean, there's no country in the world that has proposed this. It would be very un-American to do this. It's not a conservative value in my mind. He was for a single-payer system for health care until very recently. Not a very conservative point of view. Look, Mr. Trump has clearly got talent. I mean, there's no denying that. He's won over a lot of people. People are very angry about how Washington's not working. He's tapped into that. I respect people that feel the way they do, for sure. But when people look at his record, it is not a conservative record. Even on immigration, where it's, look, it's the language is pretty vitriolic for sure. But hundreds of billions of dollars of cost to implement his plans is not a conservative plan. Why don't we support, and this is going to be my pitch, let's support someone who you don't have to guess where he stands because he's consistent. Because he's been governor and he consistently has the views that he has. And over time, I think people are going to want someone sitting behind the big desk that they know their compass points north, that they have the integrity to act on what they say they'll do, and they have the leadership skills to make it so. That's it. Yep.
Do you want me to hold it? Oh, okay. Thanks. Hi, Governor. You've stated that you don't think climate change is the highest priority. Do you think climate change is a real threat to our country? And do you have an actual plan to fight it?
Climate is changing. It is something that we need to be constantly aware of. What I've said when I'm asked this every town hall meeting, what I've said is that we need to make sure that we have a balanced view on this. My priority is high sustained economic growth where more people have a chance to rise up. And that is going to be done by an energy revolution that provides low-cost energy sources to allow us to reindustrialize the country, to allow for manufacturing jobs to come back into the country, to give the beleaguered middle class a break of lower utility prices, lower gasoline prices. And by the way, American ingenuity, American technology, American free enterprise system has created a reduction in carbon emissions. So there's a common ground there. That's the good news. The good news is since 2005, there's been a 10% reduction in carbon emissions. It's amazing. And it's not because of a command and control approach top-down from Washington. It's allowing the bottom-up to prevail, and we've created this huge amount of natural gas that's now being used as a source of energy that has less carbon emissions to it. But the climate is changing. I mean, I live in Miami, a place where if the most dire projections occur, look, I mean, we're like 3 feet above sea level. It's going to create real problems. It could create water problems as it relates to water supply. And I think we have to adapt to that for sure. The government plays a constructive role in research and development for the next generation of technologies. But I don't think what we should do is to suppress this great success story economically that is helping us grow our economy. Yeah.
Thank you, Governor. This question is specifically about energy and the energy revolution. And you did talk about gas. However, I think you mentioned something about green technology during the debate. And I was hoping that, did you?
I don't know.
I'm sorry.
No,
I'm
it's
sorry.
okay. Doesn't matter. Ask me your question.
I believe that
it might come back to me.
I believe that we're missing the boat when it comes to innovation with green technology. Do you have any idea, any desire to try to help with other technologies besides gas and oil?
Sure. Well, I don't think I brought this up, but someone may have. There was 10 people on the stage, so someone might have brought it up. I think the role of the federal government is we need to spend more money on research and development. By the way, NIH funding has been cut dramatically as well. That's the proper role because there's not one single private entity that can do the advanced research work for the next disruption that could be a renewable source of energy. What I don't think the federal government should do is to pick winners and losers. And we tried that with the stimulus with the Department of Energy's kind of venture capital arm, and it didn't work. They lost most of this money. But there is a role for the federal government to play in finding the next generation of technologies, and I think we'll find it. I'm pretty confident that America is still the innovation leader in the world. This is what we do best, and if we don't suppress this, there will be sources of energy that I don't know what they are, but I'm pretty sure there's someone in a garage right now that's sorting it out. I'll give you an example. This is not a federal government research project, but Bill Gates, pretty wealthy dude, in his private investing is trying to invest. He's investing in a business that wants to create a breakthrough technology as it relates to a safe, low-cost, smaller packages of nuclear power, totally renewable. Now, I don't know if that's going to work or not. I don't know if he knows it's going to work or not, but there will be these breakthrough moments, and we should be excited about the entrepreneurial spirit and the innovative spirit of our country. The other thing that I think I've said, I don't know if I said it in the debate, but might as well say it here in case the question comes up, is I think we should stop using the tax code for picking winners and losers, including the oil and gas industry, by the way. That's not the proper role for figuring out how it's all supposed to be working out. This should be based on what is the best energy source at the lowest cost that can create the greatest economic benefit. And so using the tax code has not worked as well. The oil and gas industry has gotten tax credits. And the tax proposal I will have will reduce as many of these exemptions as possible to flatten out and lower tax rates so that we're not trying to pick winners and losers through the tax code. Someone raised, yes.
Hello.
Hey.
So I served as an AmeriCorps at Vista here in New Hampshire.
Yeah.
And I know that previous presidents have been supportive of national service opportunities like AmeriCorps.
Yep.
So as president, will you support national service?
Yeah, no, I think it's been, when I was governor, we used the AmeriCorps volunteers for environmental issues, cleanup and protecting some of the very pristine lands in Florida. We also used them as mentors in our schools because we launched this initiative of wanting to have 200,000 mentors in schools where they were in relationships at least once a week with students that were struggling readers. One of the reasons why we had the greatest gains in reading, apart from our accountability, was that we opened up the schools to allow for more people to volunteer. And the AmeriCorps volunteers played a huge role in that. So I think it's a very good program. And it gives people a chance to serve at a young age, which I think is also really extraordinarily important.
Will you support it?
I just said, yeah, that's the third time now. Yeah.
you've covered a number of subjects, and I have some concerns about terrorism and drugs and various criminals coming across our borders.
Right.
We have a heroin problem here in New Hampshire, and would you please speak about those topics?
Sure. This afternoon wasn't a press event, but it just because I hear this all the time, the heroin challenge that exists. And the first time I started hearing about it was here in New Hampshire, but it's all over the country now. And so I went to a roundtable discussion to talk about the recovery movement in our country as a way to deal with this. In Florida, we dealt with it in a comprehensive way, Sheriff. We got law enforcement to get involved. We expanded treatment, and we created prevention facilities, or prevention coalitions in all the counties. But what we talked about today was not just having the next leg, the most important leg perhaps, is to have an ongoing effort of recognizing that addiction needs to be, it's a lifetime challenge, and you need to have a recovering kind of philosophy about this, and people need to stay together in this regard. And look, I have some personal experience in this just as a dad, and it is the most heartbreaking thing in the world to have to go through. So I'm all in creating strategies to deal with this. Heroin is particularly scary because of the high quality of it now. The cost of it is next to nothing. Doctors are giving out way too much pain medication. Prescribed medicine is the entry, it's the gateway kind of now into this issue. And then once you get addicted to prescribed medicine, OxyContin and other things like that, sadly, people finding lower costs will end up using heroin. This is the wrong approach to deal with this. And the borders, this is a good reason why we should control our borders. I don't know exactly what part of the border heroin comes through, but it clearly is coming because the price is extraordinarily low. And here's my idea about that. What we need to do is to expand the number of Border Patrol agents. We need to have our Border Patrol agents be much more forward-leaning. A lot of the Border Patrol agents, I was speaking to the governor of Arizona, he told me that a majority of the Border Patrol agents in Arizona are in Phoenix. Phoenix, if you know your geography, is not on the border. And there's all sorts of reasons why that's the case, labor negotiations and things like that. But we need to be much more strategic about this. We've dramatically expanded the number of border agents, but they need to be surging where the need is. And then they need to use the tools that exist today that are extraordinarily effective. Things like GPS technology, radar, using drones, all these things we need to be in a coordinated way, identifying the vulnerabilities of our border, and then surge towards it so that you create a healthy deterrent. Secondly, 40% of people that come here illegally come with a legal visa and they just overstay. And so we need more ICE agents, significantly more ICE agents where visa holders stay, so that we know where they are. And I think we should be able to deputize local and state law enforcement to play this role. The federal law right now prohibits that, but we should have an extended reach to deal with coming here illegally or staying illegally should be a lot harder than coming legally. And that is not the case right now. And the net effect of that also would be to deal with possible threats of terrorism, the threats of drug importation, the exportation of guns that happens going the other way to Mexico. Securing the border is hugely important. Final thing I'll say about border enforcement and border security. Look, the federal government right now does not deport criminals. I mean, I don't believe that we should take people that are here in the shadows and deport them all. The cost of that would be in the hundreds of billions of dollars. It would rip up communities. It's not appropriate. But criminals should be deported. And right now, the Obama administration is not doing that. And so cities that violate federal law by just putting people back into the community after they've committed felonies like that, they shouldn't get a single penny from the federal government. And if you do that, you end up, in an extended way, you end up creating a healthy deterrent effect that would solve this problem. Yes, sir. I'm sorry, I haven't looked back here, but I'm going to next.
Hi, Governor Bush. I'm a student at Plymouth State University. Massive student loan problem, and myself, a lot of my friends, a lot of people that I know are leaving with loans that are just absolutely crippling. It's tough to find a job once you get out of school, so could you just speak a little bit about that?
Sure. So we need to reform our student loan program. It's doubled in size in a relatively short period of time, and people are getting degrees that don't necessarily, either a degree that would give them a valuable job, but the job's not available, or they're getting degrees that don't give them much value, and yet they have recourse debt, which is the point you're bringing up, that's pretty extraordinary. So I think the universities have to have skin in the game, for starters. If it's, just to remind everybody, a 4-year degree is what you get, right, when you graduate, undergraduate degree. They measure 4-year degree completion, 4-year degrees in 6 years. 12 credit hours is now a full-time equivalent student, because you can you take a course on Friday? Not many. I mean, if you look at least I'll speak for my state, the occupancy rate in classrooms on Friday are like barely over double digit. Mondays, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Thursday, you can get a class. But you can't even, it's very hard to graduate with a 4-year degree in 4 years right now. And then we put debt on top of it. We're financing the inefficiencies of our higher education system. So I think one of the reforms is that the schools themselves have to have skin in the game. If kids aren't graduating, then there ought to be some refund that helps lower the cost of the student loan. That would be one example. The other example is that there should be more accountability for universities in general. We have unbelievably good universities, but students aren't getting the right counseling when they start. They ought to know how it is, what's the path to get to a 4-year degree in 4 years if they're full-time. And then we need to grow our economy so that students, young people, when they graduate, actually can get a job to start paying off their loans. What we shouldn't do is to create more free stuff without any reforms attached. That's the progressive, liberal, top-down way. That's the Hillary way. And that won't, I can guarantee you the net result of that is we're not going to have a higher graduation rate than we have today. College attainment today for people your age, you're 15th in the world. My age, number 1. Not in our generation, it's a lot dumber than yours, I think. So this is a question of an institutional problem. It's not the question of the intelligence of the students. The students are extraordinarily intelligent. We need to have a system now that hasn't been challenged. And the costs that have gone up in education are even higher than healthcare costs. And so reforming this is going to be hugely important. Yes, sir.
Thank you for taking my question, Governor. I have a 2-part question to you. First part.
I only accept one part question.
Fair enough.
You can ask me 2 questions that are 1 part each.
That's fine. First one pertains to the whole threat of ISIS.
Yep.
I feel that this current administration is not taking them seriously at all. They now have access to chemical weapons, and they have been funded by our government through the fact that we've given to governments over in the Middle East that have then either through corruption or just plain possibly blackmail or being afraid of the leaders in ISIS have given money to them. They've used our Humvees, our weapons that we've also put into countries over there that have then been taken over by ISIS. What will you do to put a stop to ISIS? And my second question is in regards to the whole Iran deal.
Oh, wow.
What will you do?
Okay, fasten your seatbelts here. We may be here a while. Great questions. Those are the 2, I think, dominant questions in foreign policy today. As it relates to ISIS, we need to create a strategy, first and foremost. This is a dangerous organization, a caliphate, that every day that it exists gains energy from the fact that they can then take this on the internet and hail they're the strong horse. They're the mighty fighters against all that's wrong, and we're at the top of the list of what's wrong. They propose having the black flag of ISIS fly over the White House. This is a threat, and the threat comes because their strength, then they translate that into recruiting people from all around the world, even the United States. At least 100 of their fighters have U.S. passports, and they recruit sleeper cells, if you will, in our own country. And this is a huge challenge. By allowing it to exist as a caliphate the size of Indiana, controlling more than 1 million people in population. This is a danger to the national security of our country. So what should we do? First, we need a strategy. The president has openly admitted twice now in the last year he doesn't have a strategy. Well, maybe we need a new president. I mean, maybe we need a new president. And the ISIS of Iraq is different on the strategy than the ISIS in Syria. Because ISIS in Iraq, we at least have a government that we can work with to develop a strategy to take them out and push them out of Iraq. Which means that we need to arm the Kurdish Peshmerga, a great fighting force, a serious fighting force. A couple of Kurd fans back there. All right. We need to re-engage with the Sunni tribal leaders that were partners of our efforts in the surge that created a fragile but stable Iraq when it was successful. And there's blood on the hands of the Iranians that are in Iraq fighting against these people that, and once we pulled back, the sectarian discord that existed made it harder for us to actually have the Sunnis involved in this. They have to be involved in it. And then we need to be involved with the Iraqi military. The Canadians are embedded with the Iraqi military. The United States is prohibited from doing this. We have our hands tied behind our backs. So we don't have forward air controllers as it relates to the sorties that we have. We have lawyers that decide when it's appropriate to send armaments down. We don't have spotters. We need all of this if we're serious. We have to have some skin in the game for the Iraqis to think that we're serious. And in doing so, we could fiercely hit back on ISIS. And starting to win will create a momentum effect. It'll affect the amount of money they receive. They get about $100 million in oil, although that's declining. They extract money from the people that they control. They rape and pillage anybody that doesn't believe in their radical ideology. If you're a Christian under their control, you're dead. And if you're a Muslim that believes in a peaceful Islam, you're likely to be dead as well. And so pushing them back creates a momentum effect that will embolden people that don't embrace their ideology. Syria is a more difficult situation because we totally pulled back from Syria. 4 years ago, we said we would support the Syrian Free Army. It existed. It was actually a fighting force that was recognized and important. And had we trained them and provided the armaments that they wanted, we might have a different situation in Syria. But today, we have total chaos. So we have to create a safe zone. We have a tiny safe zone right now in cooperation with the Turks. We need to have safe zones to build a moderate Sunni army, if you will, with the support. In fact, you cannot do this without the support of the Turks, the Saudis, the other countries in the region. They have to have skin in the game. In fact, they should be financing this because the biggest threat is going to be for them in the most immediate future. And then we need to have a no-fly zone as it relates to Syria as well. And this relates not just to ISIS, it relates to Iran and their influence in the region. Iran is the largest sponsor of terrorism in the world. And they play it out in the region to undermine every country in the region. They're going to get $100 billion with this agreement. My personal belief is, and I hope and pray that this is the case, each day there's another revelation about this agreement and how inappropriate it is. Today it was about the IAEA now having agreed that Iran will self-certify. Did you hear about this? Will self-certify whether their military facilities are going to be are complying with previous commitments. Are you serious?
With only 8 samples per site.
I mean, this is the world Alice in Wonderland logic that we have. The more this information comes out, the more Democrats will oppose this deal, and my hope and prayer is that it is rejected by the Congress with a 2/3 vote. That is better than the deal that we have on the table right now. And so the final point I'd say is, whether that exists or not, we still have to contend with Iran's influence. They will have, with sanctions lifted, they will have the capability in short order to be able to buy the most sophisticated conventional weapons. They'll have the ability to have ballistic missile capabilities. They're going to buy from the Russians anti-missile capabilities to deal with the one possible threat that Iran will respect, which is a military strike against their nuclear facilities if there's a breakout that's been proven. All of this will be done irrespective of what happens with Congress. And so the next president needs to make on day one a commitment that Iran will never have nuclear capability and that we re-engage in the region to push them back and lessen their influence through Hezbollah, through the rebels in Yemen, through Hamas, and through supporting Assad. That has to be the case if we want to create a more secure world. I'm saving you, okay? I got a new prayer for you, too.
Governor, thank you very much. America is very, very lucky today, and so is the Republican Party, in that we have an incredible, talent-rich pool of men and women running for president. The best, I think, this country has ever seen. A lot of strong conservatives. How does Jeb Bush separate himself, differentiate himself, your message, which makes you rise above all that wonderful pool of candidates? What do you want us to take home tonight to really remember you? Thank you.
Great question, and I think it's correct. We have some really good men and women. One woman who's much more talented than the other team's woman. And my message is that I have the leadership skills to make it so. There are a lot of really interesting ideas out there, but we've been talking about ideas for a long while, and we've been in an era where nothing gets done. I have the skills to get it fixed. Whatever the problem is, by and large, most of those problems, I've had a chance to deal with them as governor of the state of Florida, and I have the most comprehensive, reform-minded, conservative, principled record of anybody running for president. And I have the life experience to make it so, to turn ideas into reality, which is what we need to start doing. And so I respect the fact that there are really a lot of talented people running. They are, for sure. But I think I have the leadership skills. We've had a case where we had a really talented person running for president, charismatic beyond belief. You know, he could riff off of a teleprompter like a symphony orchestra, person, like a Stradivarius violinist, one amazing talent. But he had no practical experience. You know who I'm talking about? He had no leadership skills that were evidence. He had no record. He didn't do anything. And look what we got. We got a leader who divides us every chance he gets. He pushes down the opponents to make them have bad motives. The most recent one, the one that last week blew my head off, was when he said that people that oppose this Iran deal are in cahoots with the Death to America crowd. Really, Mr. President? You're the one negotiating with the Death to America crowd. How dare you say that people might have a different view from you? This is the problem in America today, and this is why I want to be president, why I think I have the skills to do it. I'm not going to push someone down. I'll disagree with them, and I'll do it with conviction, but I'm not going to push someone down to make myself look better. We're never going to solve problems that way. And it's time for us to start solving problems. So that's my message. I hope it resonates with you, because I'm working my tail off to get your vote. Green people. The famous green people are here.
Thanks for taking my question. It's great to be here. My name is Jessica Lubian. I'm from Manchester, New Hampshire.
Yep.
And we would love to have you at our No Labels Problem Solving Convention, October 12th. Will you be there?
I don't know yet. I just got an email from John Huntsman about it. Then I got an email from Mac McClarty about it. Then I got an email from Al Cardos about it. I'm holding out for Joe Lieberman. Is it Joe Lieberman now? I'm holding out for Lieberman. No, but we have it. I don't know if I'm coming or not, but I admire. I just don't know. I don't control my life anymore. But I know what it is, and I applaud the fact that you all are engaged. It's a great organization, and you're always respectful when you come to the town hall meetings too, for which I'm grateful. Yes, coming right around.
Thank you, Governor, for taking my question. We Republicans really fought in the last election to give the Senate and the House of Representatives to Republicans. And the anger, I believe, that is rising up from the American people is that Boehner and McConnell have not, they promised that there would be a bill going to Obama's desk that would overthrow Obamacare, along with all these other promises. So what I need to hear from you is, why should we believe, no offense to you, career politicians as opposed to those people who are coming in from the outside who are taking this anger with them and saying, look, you people, we gave you people, and a year later you have done nothing. So where do we go from here?
Well, first of all, I'm not taking it as an insult you're calling me a career politician, but I served as governor for 8 years. It's the job that I wanted. I did it with all my heart. I did it with passion, conviction, and I left. I'm 62 years old, so my math suggests 62 minus 8 is 54 years of real-world living. So just saying. You need a Republican president to repeal Obamacare. You need a Republican president to reform our taxes. You need a Republican president who knows how to do it to reform the mind-numbing regulations. You need a Republican president to appoint men and women that have experience in the subject matter that we're asking them to regulate. You need a Republican president that respects the Constitution and doesn't sign executive orders randomly as though it's easy to do. Frankly, you need a Republican president to bang Republican heads. Because right now, they don't even talk. I mean, there's like mustard gas. It's like it's not World War II, it's World War I. They're in trenches, they're fighting each other, there's no consensus. And so to make Washington work again, I think you need someone who's not from there, who doesn't think passing an amendment is success and validating your correct point that there were big promises made and they haven't been kept yet. You need someone that can work with people to fix these things, and that's what I offer. I'm as frustrated as you. Our country is languishing. It's not, my frustration is irrelevant. What frustrates me is that there are more people living in poverty today, that Americans think their children aren't going to have as much opportunity. I meet people all the time that said, I've stopped my business because these rules make it impossible for me to be able to hire people anymore. I hear this all the time, and I see the broken systems, and it frustrates me for them. And we need to start thinking about what it's like to live in America today where you have declining income and costs that are extraordinary. And not just prey on their anger, but give them hope that we can fix these things to make them better. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Governor.
Thank you. We've got a lot of questions today. That's
no,
good.
just two. I just have two. One
you only have two?
Well, wait a minute. No, but the second one took me 15 minutes to formulate, and I think you may have already answered, so let me set that one aside.
Good work.
It seems that every time the country faces a fiscal crisis, the answer has been, it seems, to raise the debt ceiling, which scares a lot of us to death. Would you please address the issue and what you plan to do specifically about it?
Well, I mean, I'm kind of confused by it. You say the question is to raise the debt ceiling rather than to shut down government?
Exactly. The question is, do you have a solution to stop raising the debt ceiling?
Well, the only way you can stop raising the debt ceiling is stop creating debt. Because every time, you raise the debt ceiling and it's always short term and it's always inevitable that they can get it down to the last month almost, or day almost, of when we run out of money. We need a long-term plan to deal with the budget deficit. This is what No Label's contribution to the political process is, and others. This is New Hampshire. This is what people ask all the time. And here's what I think we ought to do. We ought to grow the economy at a faster rate than the new normal. The new normal is 2%. If we get there, this year we're not going to get there. 2% growth means more demand on government. And you can see it. More food stamps, greater increase in Medicaid beneficiaries, higher SSI disability, higher unemployment compensation. And all of these costs crowd out the kind of long-term investments that are necessary for higher growth. Infrastructure, research and development, the military, which is not necessarily for an economic purpose, but it's important for our national security. We're gutting the military to pay for the here and now. So number one, grow the economy at a faster rate. And I gave out ideas, and in this campaign, September 9th, I'm going to have a tax plan that will be a stimulus for high growth. The regulatory side of this is another element of that uniquely the president can focus on that will unleash the animal spirits of our country again. The energy revolution I mentioned. So growing the economy faster will create more income and more revenue for government the right way. The wrong way would be to raise taxes and to stifle economic activity. The right way is to create a climate where we have growth, where the government naturally gets income from that, but it's not more than people's income. If we focus on growing personal income, government will be taken care of. And then the final big element of this, apart from having a zeal for reform of everything, I mean, does it really cost $800 million to set up a website? Does anybody think that that's a good idea? Or cost overruns, billion-dollar overrun for a hospital? Or procurement systems that are just go on for the, as far as the eye can see in the military, that cost 10x more than what was anticipated 25 years ago. And this is kind of the problem we have, is that we're not applying sound business practices to the regular order way of government. Those things are important to do because that'll restore people's confidence that we're not just, away money. And then the final thing I'd say, which is the big elephant in the room, is we need to preserve and protect our entitlement systems and our Social Security system for those that have already earned it. But we need to fix it to make sure it exists for the next generation. And we have to have the courage to do this. Medicare today has a net present value cost. I'm taking all the projected expenses and all the projected revenue, bringing it back to the present value of $29 trillion. Medicare alone. Medicaid has $1 trillion of costs that are unfunded. The new Obamacare entitlement is going to be, not the first 5 years, but after that will be in deficit. Social Security by 2032, there's going to be an automatic cut of 25% unless we reform these things. And you're never going to do this unless you get Democrats and Republicans together to be able to forge consensus. And for those that think it's not going to be possible to do it, I'm going to take you down a little walk down memory lane. You won't remember this. 1980s, Tip O'Neill, from around these parts as I recall. Liberal Democrat, as liberal as you can get. Ronald Reagan from California, pretty conservative guy. They knew that Social Security, if we continued on the trend lines we were on, was going to go bankrupt. So they put aside their differences. They didn't assume that the one person was evil or bad because they didn't agree with them. There was none of this, It was, how do we make this work? And they put together people of different parties in a room. They forged consensus. And even today, that reform that took place in 1980 is still playing out. The retirement age is increasing by a month every year. And it's because people were patriotic. They love this country like most people do. And they said, we have to fix this. If we don't fix it, the debt will overwhelm us. If we don't fix these things, our kids and grandkids aren't going to have the life that we want for them. And so this is a huge issue. This is perhaps the biggest issue. This is why Mike Mullen said the greatest national security threat that we have in this country is not for the political system, not fixing the structural budget deficits that we face. Listen. How are we doing?
Good. My name is Mike. I'm from the Republic of South Sudan, and I'm an American citizen. I came here actually legally.
Good for you. I never would have thought that coming here legally would have gotten an applause like that. But that's the world we're in. Welcome.
Yeah, my heart is telling me that you're going to be the winner of 2016.
You got that worked out for me already?
Yep, it's telling me. I have two questions for you. One is the threat of ISIS. The entire Arabian Peninsula is under threat. Yep. North Africa, and possibly to East Africa. President Obama's foreign policy has fell apart. He doesn't know how to be able to maintain and contain these terrorists and put them in the cell so that they are no longer a threat to the world. Americans also are leading behind. Instead of leading in front, now they decided to lead from behind, which is now lead to the world, that the world is under the threat. Number two, what will you make to create more jobs to the American people when you become the president? Thank you.
So on the ISIS threat, I described the strategy, but you make a very good point that the caliphate exists inside of Iraq and Syria, gaining strength, but ISIS influence goes way beyond that. It goes into Libya, where one of the factions in Libya is affiliated with ISIS. You have other terrorist organizations, Boko Haram in northern Nigeria. And this ideology is dangerous. It's just incredibly dangerous, and we need to be a partner with the countries that are threatened by it. We can't pull back. We can't lead from behind. This terminology needs to be erased from the lexicon of American life. Leading from behind? I mean, who came up with that? I mean, that's like the strangest sounding thing. There's no such thing as leading from behind. You either lead or you don't. You either pull back or you're engaged. It's not the way the president describes it, where if you want to lead, you're a warmonger. That is just patently false. If we want to create a more peaceful world, we have to be engaged in the world. And our special capabilities need to be on the field. And we need to make sure that people know that we have their back. Then you can contain these threats. The majority of people living in the countries threatened by ISIS do not want them on top of their lives, threatening to kill them, to rape their children, to hold them hostage, to take all their money, to shatter their dreams. But who's going to fight on their side if we're not around? We have to be engaged so as to enable and embolden others to be able to take responsibility for control of their own countries. And so I totally get the issue of ISIS, and I think it's important for us to stop even talking about things like leading from behind. And growth in jobs will come from higher growth in the economy. If we're going to grow at 2%, you're going to get the anemic growth we have today. You know who wins in the 2% growth analogy, the new normal of 2%? Rich people. The wealthy. The wealthy have done